if I were to give advice, it would be to artists shouldn't box themselves into a plan. You know, where everybody thinks we're supposed to be out of the box. Majority of my artwork is ink drawings with pen and ink. I do a lot of collage work as well, and I dabble a little bit in painting, but not too much. Mainly I do like ink illustrations that could range from portraiture to more abstract stuff, but mainly most of my ink drawings revolve around music, specifically jazz. It is my favorite form of music. It's the kind of music where I get the most inspiration from, specifically old jazz, 20s, 30s, start into the 40s. It was my grandfather who introduced me to it. He'd be watching me, so he was of that generation, 20s, 30s. And when I would spend the night there, he'd get me out of bed super early and sit down and make me breakfast and play jazz on the radio, or let me play with his 78s. Mills Brothers, Benny Goodman, Artie Shaw, Duke Ellington, all that whole crew. The other reason why jazz is such a big inspiration to me is because I was one of very few people of my age group who were even into it. So it felt like my own. It felt more personal because it wasn't as common. So that only made my love for the music stronger. If I really loved the piece, like there are pieces I'll be midway through working on or a third of the way through working on, and I really love it. Like above all else, I'm like, this is gonna be one that I'm really gonna be happy with. Then I don't want to stop, and what takes a week may take 3 days, just because I'm that honed in on it. And I'm also not afraid to put a piece aside for months if it's just not clicking. If I hit a wall, I'll just put it away and rather not force it. And then I'll pick it up in a month, 2 months, 6 months, sometimes a year. And I'm like, this wasn't that bad. It wasn't as bad as I thought. And then with whatever I gained in that time, I can dive back in. The first thing is that every artist is different. We all create at different paces in different ways. So it's tough for one artist to tell another artist how to go about it. And because you don't want to force it, you don't want to hit that wall. Try to improvise it, don't push it, because then you'll end up with a piece that felt forced and you're not happy with it. But if I were to give advice, it would be to artists shouldn't box themselves into a plan. Where everybody thinks we're supposed to be out of the box. So rather not box yourself in to a specific plan. Leave room to go with the flow. Leave room for rabbit holes and improvisation in there, because sometimes an idea will strike you midway through a piece that is better than what you originally planned. I would say the biggest accomplishment for me, and it's important to know that no matter what they say, every artist likes it when people like their work. And they especially like it when people like their favorite work. If a piece of mine is my favorite piece and a bunch of people like it, I'm gonna feel good about that. So for me, that's my jazz pieces. And about a year ago, I had an art show that was solely jazz-related art on Staten Island. This was my first show in my hometown. And it didn't matter what they were hanging on the wall. It meant so much for me to have a show in my hometown where I started. It's not the perfect place, but it meant a lot to me, and it was one neighborhood over from where I grew up, and that sentimentally was a great accomplishment for me, and I made that show happen. I contacted the owner of the space, and we worked back and forth, and they granted me the spot for just a jazz-related show, and it was a thrill from beginning to end. People seeing my work, I feel like, is an accomplishment. Whether things sell or not is a whole nother game, but the bigger picture is people seeing the art and enjoying it. find my visual artwork on Instagram. The handle is very simple. It's just my name at Albert Shivers. You can find the Planet Shivers podcast on all the major podcast apps, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the podcast app, iTunes, SoundCloud, and with video content on YouTube. There's a variety of different guests. I think there's something for anybody to listen to. And I also have a Patreon page. Very simple. You can look it up. My name, Albert Shivers.